Is it doing it? I'm not seeing the countdown on it. I don't really know if it's actually recording. All right, I'm just going to keep going. I don't want to hold you up. Okay, so continue. See, I'm really bad at giving you the limelight here, aren't I? Go ahead, continue and talk to me a little bit more about what you're thinking as far as setting up maybe like the different pages. They've got it broken down. Did you talk about that at all in your outline? Just continue with what you were talking about.
No, I don't think I did, okay. But I would organize it very differently. Like, first off, I would make on the desktop,
yep.
The screen larger, the web page larger, because it's really small.
Yeah, and it's actually not fluid. Do you know what a fluid website entails?
Like way more organized.
Actually, it's the format and how it's designed. So if you shrink your, I don't know what are you in Chrome? Are you in Firefox? Safari?
I'm in Explorer.
I'm so sorry, Skylar. You need to stop using that. It's not supported on a Mac anymore, FYI. Will you just download Chrome for me today? Just if you do one thing today, just do that.
Chrome actually doesn't work on my computer.
What?
Yeah.
What system are you on?
A very old laptop.
Aren't you on a Mac?
No.
Why didn't you tell me? I thought you had a Mac. I would have sent you home with one.
Because.
All right. We'll talk about that at another time. Okay.
I think my mom wants to buy me a MacBook for my graduation gift.
Aw, that's
I still
really
don't
sweet.
know if that's on the table or not. But
okay. Yeah, things change. Yeah, it's hard. It is hard. Okay, never mind. We're good. All right, so as far as looking at this, if you take your screen and you shrink it in, right, you make it smaller, it doesn't adapt to the space, right? We call that fluidity. So it may work fine. Like if I pull it up on my phone here, let's see what it looks like. I'm using Safari on my phone, so let's search Joyful Rescues.com. Okay, so it fits, so it's designed to work with your phone screen, probably a tablet size, and then this is a fixed format web page. And so it will not shrink or expand. So when you stretch it out to make it bigger, there's always like black bars down the side, and they programmed it that way. But if I make it smaller, it also does not adapt, right? I make it smaller and it doesn't shrink. It doesn't show me all of the information. So that indicates to me that this website was probably made prior to that technology, which would have been 8 or 9 years ago, which is very possible. A lot of people don't have the funding, especially for companies like this that are nonprofits, to make the modifications to do that because it works. People can still see it and they can make their screens bigger if they need to, right? So that would be definitely something that I would address and just say to have the web page more fluid and to be able to be expandable into any format. And that would allow columns to break. So like the column in the featured pet section, right? Obviously that works off to the side. That could pop down below the adoption application. Grizzly's Kiss It Better Fund would narrow up, and maybe the picture goes above the article there. Same thing with Joyful Rescues wish list, right? Things start to adopt a new format in order to work with the size of the screen is basically what that means. So you always want to be as fluid as you possibly can. It just makes for a better solution, when people can manage it a little bit nicer. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. That's the word I wanted. Responsiveness. That was the word I was struggling with. So adaptability and responsiveness is what fluid design is all about. So there are no fixed spaces. Sometimes you can actually see when there's a shift, like if you shrink it down, it goes into like tablet mode size, and it'll kind of jump. You'll see a
Yeah.
website that jumps because it's transitioning to that other size. That's part of creating a fluid design. It just happens that way sometimes. And that's not a big deal at all. That just is the nature of transitioning from one format to the next. Um, there are standard formats, and actually, if you go into InDesign, and we usually typically work with the print options, but there are web options and app options that you can choose, and those are standard web sizes and standard app screen sizes too. So that's a good way to check. And you can search standard web, format sizes. It'll show you the different pages depending on what you're doing. And you've seen other websites that like the full page is a picture or it goes all the way across, and then as you shrink the page it modifies the screen. So
Yeah.
just looking at format a little bit. All right, so go ahead, keep talking. I'm so bad. I think I let you get a sentence in on the last one.
No,
I just
that's
have
okay.
so much information I want to share with you, Skylar.
I understand. That's okay.
All right, go ahead.
I was also thinking maybe, I don't know how difficult it is, but add a tiny bit of animation to it. Like I saw this one website that you click on, and the first part like swooshes in, and the next part, and it looks professional
Do you remember
and
the name of the site?
organized. I probably can.
Okay.
I have to look.
Write this stuff down when you come across it. I would love to
Okay.
see it because animation a lot of times can be a challenge because you don't always have someone who has the capability of doing animation on their computer, depending on their graphics card, right? So,
Oh,
right, so you're limited to what their accessibility is, and that is something we forget sometimes when we design for a large group of people. I would always assume that the monitor that you're on is going to be 2 times better than what most people are going to be viewing on. So again, looking at colors can be a huge challenge. And then, so as designers, especially print designers, we're like, we've got thousands of colors, millions of colors we can use. On web, you should probably stick to like 23, because not everyone's screen is going to look the same. So as much as I let you speak for another sentence, I just want to address that because I want you to always think smaller. And I know that's hard to sometimes, but if you think that way, then the majority of the people will actually be able to view what your goal was for the design. And then you're not limited. Fonts are the same way, right? So you don't want to choose some crazy out there fonts. If their computers can't handle it or don't even have that font, it's going to look funky. The connection to fonts and web pages are not as big a deal as it used to be. They used to look for fonts on your computer. They don't do that anymore. But you do want to stay with fonts that obviously are good font pairs, right? So always looking for fonts that stay connected. And then you always want to be looking for a layout that's going to be able to work. So if you want to use a GIF, which is what I would recommend if you're going to do any animation, I would say, just be careful that it's something that you think the majority of people are going to be able to access with their computers. So knowing your audience and knowing how they're going to view this web page, or maybe you don't know, what do you think? How do you think they're going to access this web page?
I don't know.
So that's always the big question. Let me go back to our Lester Howick study here and see if they did anything on that position statement. Survey of results, PSA layouts, social media recommendations, 35. Let's go down here and see what we got. By the way, this so the slogan for this website or for this company is "Change their world and yours." Aww, that's so cute. Okay, I think this whole article actually might be a really good eye opener for you. I'm just saying that from just very literally quickly scrolling through this. Okay, social media recommendations. Past research and the survey results revealed that social media are essential to increasing the number of adoptions, donations, and volunteers, as well as social media plans to increase the direct communications to potential donors, volunteers, and adopters. Because staff and internet sites were identified as two of the most important sources for information for potential pet adopters, it was crucial to keep an open avenue of communications to increase the likelihood of adoption. I think I said that earlier. Social media is another necessary avenue of communication to potential donors, adopters, and volunteers. Most adopters learn about animal shelters through internet resources such as Facebook or Pet Finder. I did not know about Pet Finder, so there you go. Someone they know is 29%. Facebook or Pet Finder was 37%. And media such as TV, newspaper, radio, or phone book. Really? Okay, those must be the women that are getting cats in their 40s and 50s. Sorry. Social media such as Facebook and Twitter are central to disseminating information and answering questions for adopters, which that's kind of what I said to you earlier. The use of Facebook, Twitter, and social media platforms in general is on the rise. As of 2015, which is 5 years ago, that's actually a long time ago, 65% of all adults and 76% of all internet users use at least one social media platform. And for us old folks, it's Facebook. For you guys, it's completely different. You know, Snapchat and Instagram. And what's the other one that's popular? I know you're not a big social media person, but there's another one that's a big one out there now that people use. And Twitter. Twitter is verbiage though, it's not visual. So that hits a lot of groups because it can be corporate or it can be business oriented. It could be presidentially oriented, right? I mean, our president's the biggest tweeter out there. And then you also have large groups of people that are agreeing or disagreeing on topics. And then you've got your random, I want to be an unknown and just say what I want to say without people judging me kind of Twitters. So there's all that too. Make sense? So the trend has increased greatly in the last 10 years, obviously. Young adults are most likely the age demographic to use social media. That's 90%. In addition, 68% of women use social media, and these national trends coincide well with obviously the target audience. So I don't know, I'm going to find the data that I was looking for here. By the way, they have a handle, Friends of WCAS, on their Twitter account. So check out the Twitter account for that website too and see. You can probably find just general conversations without being in Twitter, because I'm assuming if you don't have Facebook, you probably don't have Twitter to follow them. No, I'm just saying you might be able to find some information out there about their Twitter account if they do have it. 34% were Facebook. 21% they preferred to get their information from Facebook. Twitter is also important. 6% said it was their top medium. And 3% prefer to get information from their Twitter account. It's just a sad world. The phone book thing is still killing me, but hashtags, right? You want to create a series of hashtags that will help. This is not telling me what I really wanted you to see, though. So what I really wanted you to see is that people are actually searching, even if it's the website, on their phone. Right? So it's not about a computer anymore, right? And you may know this just from the nature of your own life. When you're looking for something, you're typically on your phone searching for it. So this study was done in 2015. People probably didn't use it that way at that point in time, but over the last 2 years, people have transitioned. And the reason I know that is because I do my own research and look at the marketing trends for my business. And so when I started my the business of my vacation rental, and then I started doing weddings. We were about 2014 when we started doing weddings, and people would search on their phones maybe 15% of the time when I first started this in 2014. Now we're up to 85% of the people are searching online. So they're on Facebook or they're on my website, they're doing it all on their phones. So people don't use computers anymore, is my point. Now, that older cat women age group, yes, they are using their computers still. And I'm going to attest to that some of it has to do with the fact that they can't see without their glasses, so they don't want to use their phones because it takes too much time to find their glasses. But anyway, that's just an aside. So yeah, you want to think about how can you easily connect with people using the format on the phone, and how does it work? So please look at the website on your phone. It's terrible. You won't be able to read anything. How do you take that format and make it work a little bit stronger, right? So I did not ask you to do that for the project, but I want you to mentally think about that. How do you modify it so that it works in that small screen format?
Okay.
All right.
By the way, I found the website I was talking about.
Okay.
It's called Schwabel.
Dixon Schwabel. They're an advertising agency.
Yes.
I know one of the owners of Dixon Schwabel. Super, super nice people. She
Their
does a
website is really cool.
well, it better be cool, right? So, are you talking about their logo and how they have their logo interact when you scroll through?
Yes,
Or
and when you scroll down towards the bottom of the page, the pictures like pop up, sort of. They like swoosh.
yep. So that actually is not a GIF. That is so it's actually a way of designing, and I'm trying to use the right words here for you. Um, there are ways to be able to do transitions just like you can with PowerPoint presentations, if I can make that connection for you. So when you
Okay.
go into PowerPoint, you could choose to have your images slide to the right, or
Yeah.
add text one at a time when you click the button, kind of thing. So this is what happens when you click the button, and it slides up into it and just starts filling that space. And that's exactly what they've done here. So it's actually a programming tool technique where as you get to the page, the background becomes a different color, or as you scroll up, you start to see new images that just slowly integrate into that page. And then when you hover over it, it becomes words. And so those are all things that happen because of the nature of how they programmed it. So yeah, but they're not GIFs. I mean, obviously, there's one here that's a video. The first image is actually a video, and there's a guy sliding down the slide. No, I want that in my house. That's too cool. But you know what I'm saying? Like this is that would be a regular video, and then the rest of this is all just programming. And even the second image down is where it says results that matter. Those images popping up in the background is just all part of the programming. You know, they said we want these 10 images to pop up and scroll every 2 seconds. So
Okay.
that's part of the HTML and CSS and JavaScript all built together to make that happen. So let's see, can we, I don't do this often enough. People, tabs, window, edit. I want to look at the page developer. That's what I want to look at. Okay, so if you go into your header I need you to find, because you're in Explorer, so I'm not really sure where it's located, but I need you to find the feature called Developer. In Chrome, it's under View. If that helps, it's at the bottom, and you can view your source. There's also Developer Tools too, and you can inspect elements. So if I don't know if you found it or not though. So Developer, if you can inspect elements, did you find anything like that in your Chrome window?
No, not yet.
Because I don't even have Explorer to even look at it to tell you. Well, it's not supported by Mac anymore, so.
Yes. I can't find it. What is it called? You?
So it's called Developer. In my window, it's under View, and then it's at the bottom of the screen called Developer. Let me see if I can find it for you in. Developer tool. That is not helpful. Developer tools here. Introduce it as a toolbar. Built-in. Yeah, it should be maybe under tools. Do you know what version you're on? Your
No.
Windows version?
I think I have Windows 8.
Okay. Because this is for alright, Internet Explorer 8. Let's look at that one.
Oh, I found it. Developer Tools.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Okay.
So if you can go in and look at inspect elements, you can get a dual screen so you can see code and the actual website. If you can't, it's not a big deal. What are your options under developer?
It opens the coding.
Okay, so it just gives you the basic. Okay. All right, so what you're seeing, so in Chrome, I can see both the screen for the website. It also gives me an overlay grid, which is kind of cool. And then I can also see the code. Does it show you the grid too?
Highlights.
Yeah. And then you can actually go through and see the code, and it'll show you where it's located in the site. So this is just kind of like a cool way to start looking at what they did in code. Now what you're seeing here is the HTML or the CSS. So let me, okay, so all right, so if you look in the first section here where it says HTML body div, can you see that? Okay, it says here I'm under styles. This is actually part of CSS, and basically what CSS is the ability to like create a style sheet in InDesign where we give it parameters. We tell it the font size, we tell it the color, we tell it what's how much leading we're going to have, how much kerning we're going to have. We're going to tell it all those specific things. This is basically what CSS does for us. HTML is basically the folder we put all of those in, right? So I want to create the layout, and these are all the pieces and parts, but I need all those style sheets in order to make that work. So that the first page in my document looks like this, and then the next chapter header is going to look like that too, just different images and different text. But you can use the same style sheets in order for them to carry the same requirements. Same font, same size, same leading, right? So you're giving it parameters. That's what CSS does. So it's kind of cool. I really like CSS a lot because it's the organizer. You know, it's all the little parts that have to put together in that folder. And then the HTML is the code that basically says, you go over here, you know, make it work on this side. This is the page we need this style sheet. So it's the kind of the controller, it's the programming part of it all. And you can really see that as you go through this, the different parts. So like one of the names of a CSS thing would be called body. One would be called root. And they've got those headers in there so the HTML can know, oh, this is root for root. This is what we have to do for root. You know, so it's kind of cool to see all that come together. And the best part is that someone created this and we get to see it. You know, we can actually look at their coding. Now, if you're me, this is not as exciting as it is to other people. Some people really get excited about this stuff. I like go into panic mode because this just is so overwhelming when you have to start coding stuff. But what I think it is cool is so that you can see actually what goes into the behind the scenes to make the visual a really cool thing. And if you click on a section, right, on the page, you can come in now and you can actually see what the code is all about. So it's kind of neat to be able to do that. So just some neat stuff that allows for you to visualize and kind of take a look at what is behind the scenes. You can do this with every website, by the way. So if you want to see what the developer has done, you can definitely check it out. Now up top in mine, I can just go over to the basic HTML and it's going to give me, you know, all of the standards to what the HTML says too. But this is also going to show me some of the CSS because the CSS is such an integrated part of HTML. So that'll be there. I can also look at my pages. I can look at divs. So it shows me the different pages and then what's on each page. You know, so it really allows you to look through. So the cool part about all of this is that means you can steal anything off any web page and then put your stuff in it. So back in the day, there was nothing. People would have to write code from scratch. And I joke because my brother-in-law actually developed quite a bit of code back in his day. And of course, now all of it's been overwritten by new stuff. But, you know, he's like, yeah, we would share it. You know, you would just share it with people. You didn't charge people to, you know, I would write code for something and it would save you 15 steps the next time you did something. And it was a very big open platform of sharing. And that's why this exists, because the internet was supposed to be set up for sharing opportunities between educational institutions and business. And so that's why you can see all the code and you can steal and take whatever you want because it was supposed to be a shared platform. Now you know. So yeah, so a lot of this, if you really like something they did, you can steal the code and then you can do what you want with it. Obviously, you're probably not using the same fonts and you're not using, you know, maybe you're adjusting the spacing a little bit or you want a different button for that section. You know, so you're making modifications, but you're not writing code from scratch anymore, is what happens a lot of times. So that makes it kind of neat because you can pick and choose what you want to pull from. So that's kind of neat. Now there's another website. So I'm just going to turn. Did you have any other questions about this, by the way?
No.
Okay. I'm going to turn my view back to view source so that I'm. Oh, nope, I don't want to do that. That gives me all code. Okay, now how do I get out of developer? All right, I just got myself into a tizzy here. Let's see, can I just reload this page without it?
Mine had a X on the right
To
hand
end
corner.
it? All right.
Yeah.
Let's see if this has. No, I got nothing. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. There we go. Gotcha. Perfect. I'm back. W3 schools, I think it is. Let me just check. Yeah. So if you're curious about web design at all and coding, W3 Schools, just schools.com is one of the best resources that you can use because it will allow you to test code and see it live. You can learn HTML, you can learn CSS, Bootstrap, JavaScript, jQuery, whatever your interests are. Even if it's just the basics of HTML, this is an awesome site. So I had taken 2 classes in my master's program for learning how to code, and it's still not it's just not my thing. I get it, I understand it, but it's just not. I have no interest. There's no visuals there for me. But there are a lot of designers who want to be able to take their visuals and make it work themselves, and I totally get that. So this gives you a place to come and test it out, see what happens with it, so that before you get it into your design, you can make sure that you're doing it the right way. Now, obviously, this is for beginners. I'm someone who's much more involved with coding is not going to come to W3 schools and test their code. But for beginners, this is a fantastic tool. And you can see when you get to the web page, it says, all right, I'm on HTML. I clicked on HTML, here I am. And then learn HTML, I can go to references, but off to the side it says HTML example. And then there's like a little code in here. This is the code for what you're seeing on the left side. So if you come into the title and you change it to Skylar Mott, right? I can go to try it yourself and type in Skylar Mott into my headline. Don't change anything else and run it. It's going to change to whatever I changed the headline to.
That's pretty cool.
Right? So you can play with this and really figure out, is this what I need? Is this what I want? So even if you want to just test out little things and try little things, if you're finding code that you think is interesting, this is a great place to come and have like a teacher approve it kind of thing. Hold on, I gotta let the dog in. It's a pretty cool site, right? So play with it and see what you can learn. Again, it's just not my thing. I know how to do it. I know how to proof it. I know what to look for, but it's just something that I'm not as interested in, so I didn't pursue it. And it's funny, because I had an opportunity when I was working downtown at an agency. It would have been around 1996. I know it's so long ago. We decided to create our first web page and to have a presence in the marketplace on the web, which was really, really early in all of this. And at that point in time, we still had dial-up. There was no high-speed internet yet. So our concern was like, how do we do visuals and then not have it so that it takes so long to load? Because in the print world, we're working with 300 DPI. It's got to work. We didn't know what the rules were for internet yet. So people were posting pictures that were still 300 DPI at, 7 by 10, and then it would take an hour for the image to load. So a lot of people were searching on the internet when they, if they had it, without images turned on, and they were just searching for content. And I know that for you, that seems really bizarre, right? Because why would you do that? It's all about visuals. Because it took a little too long to load pictures because people didn't understand the format yet. And we created, I wish I had screen grabbed it because it was actually a pretty cool little website, but we created this website. It was all based on the Simon game. Did you ever play the Simon game with the buttons? You had to like follow the lights. Do you know what I'm talking about? No. All right. So basically there were like 6 lights and they would blink in a series of, it would start off like 2 lights and then you would press the 2 light buttons and then it's like Simon Says. and then it would do 3 lights, and you'd have to do the 3 lights and then 4 lights, and it gets harder and harder, and like 20 lights, and then I was always out at like 10. So it's a memorization game, but that was basically Simon. It came in this, it was an electronic game. You put batteries in it, and it was a circle, and you put it on the thing, and you could play it like team. You could have multiple players, or you could play it individually, whatever. So we created our website so that the main page was one, like it was the Simon game, and you pushed a button, and that would take you to a section within our web page. So instead of having a bar with all of the menu items, we did it like a game. So it was really heavily visual. So as we worked with our programmer, because they were really programmers at the time, they weren't web developers, he's like, you need to create like a Word version of this website because it's so graphic. And we were like, well, why would you do that? But I knew, because my husband's an engineer and he doesn't care about the visuals. He just cares about content. So that's how he searched the internet. And I was like, yeah, we actually do need to do this because people won't search the site. Now, obviously, if you're a graphic designer or someone that's looking for a graphic designer, you'll search with the images on, but you won't search otherwise, so no one's sitting there waiting for images to load. And we came to the conclusion, after we did some testing, like if we make the images smaller, I think we were down to like 100 dpi, and then like 2 years later it all came out that like 72 dpi was totally fine, and you can make your images really small and you're still going to look fine on screen, because we were using Macs that had calibrated screens. We also had Visiacom, I think they were called. They were super calibrated screens, and that the rest of the world, some of them were still using like the green screen on a PC, right? Like, just we were way beyond what the normal average user is, and that's why I said to you, think about what the normal user has available to them. They're not necessarily looking at it on the same screen level that you are. So some of the history was why it's important today to just look at what you're doing. But anyway, questions on anything I've said to you?
I don't think so.
Okay, it's funny, Skylar, because I walk into every class every week, and it's typically just you and I go, we're going to be here for like 20 minutes. What else would we possibly talk about? And here I am an hour and 40 minutes later, and I'm like, wow, we've covered a lot today. Oh, it's always good. And you don't even say much. That's the sad part. For me,
Well,
anyway.
that's my personal being.
No. I know. It just means that I have too much either to share or I need to just stop talking. But I guess I'm the teacher, so that's my job, right?
It's all good.
It is all good. I just laugh about it. Any other questions? Was there anything else that you wanted to share with me that you found about the website?
I don't think so.
Okay. So let's take a look at part 2 of the project, because that's what you're going to be starting on. And make sure you email that to me too, so that I have a copy of it to give you a grade on.
Okay.
All right. Oh, you did already. I got it. Thanks. All right. I'm just kind of getting rid of a few of these. So hopefully I gave you a few really good resources today that you can go back to and take a look to help you with just making good choices in here. We didn't really talk about the menu bar too much, but this week you're going to be working on. Oh, hold on! I just hit it. I didn't mean to do that. Why does everything always not work the way you want it to? I literally click on this, it downloads. I want it to open, and then I double click on it, and it's not doing what I. I had it open, and now suddenly it's deleted. I don't know. It just doesn't even make sense. All right, this file's a little bit bigger, so give me a second here. It's almost done. Okay. All right, so the second part of the website design obviously is to take a look at kind of breaking it down a little bit. Um, you obviously are already looking at other websites, so you're already doing your research there and connecting with sites that are going to give you some cool options. So that's perfect. You have to be doing that all the time because there's so many changes happening, and even like format and style and how what people expect in a website is changing every day too, which is kind of cool. I mean, I love where we're at right now. It's so simple and clean. Um, where obviously this website for the Pets Rec, it hasn't been updated to that kind of format yet. Um, so you definitely want to take a look at that. So now, step one, research and collect. Obviously, you've been doing that. But I do want you to screen grab the pages. So give me 2 different pages from that website. And then I want you to actually, you can throw them right into InDesign if you want to, and show me where the grid is, horizontal and vertical, right? Because the main top header is going to be a section where the menu items are going to be a section, and then there's like a separate section. It's not really well defined, but it's there after the yellow box, where Gizzy's Kiss is, and then there's a Joyful Rescue. So those are all horizontal sections. And then obviously there's some vertical sections here as well where they have text, and then they do the featured pet. The rest of it is kind of just a jumble of stuff. You can define their bottom section with their little logos and stuff as a separate section and kind of break that down. Like really part of the problem with this is that they really didn't follow a grid. There's a little bit of one here, but it's not really here. So this is part of the challenge, right? Um, if you go into a sub page, pick one of the sub pages that might be a good option. Um, God, even their adoption pages are terrible. There's just so little negative space to be able to kind of like take a break here and visually connect with these things. Even like they didn't even like highlight the pictures of the cats. They're like way over on the right hand side. That's horrible. Okay. Um, Pet adoption, maybe that's better. Yikes. He ate the door. Yeah, maybe find another page that will help. This is all just big, long lines of text. What's my limitation of types? How much type per line? How many characters? One,
What
two,
was
three,
it?
four. So how many
10?
words per line? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 words on that line. My Lord. And remember, this is not fluid, so it's always going to be 19 words. 12 is good. 10 to 12 on a line, which is why we want to have grids and columns to use. So, you kind of have it easy. You got a lot of great content without a lot of good design here. So, yeah. Definitely some interesting things here. Find a lost pet, see if there's a no, this is all pretty much a one column, which is part of this website's design, right? This is a big part of it because there's just so little grid structure in here. So see what you can do. Find a secondary page. I'm trying to find one and it's still baffling me. So find a secondary page that you can really try and highlight and work that out is the goal. So I gave you just an example of 2 pages that I had done this way, and you can just see those red lines. I know it's kind of tiny. I did Wired magazine, but you can see that's all you're doing is you're overlaying red lines onto it to show me where the grid is. And with yours, it's pretty simple, so you'll be fine. And then that way you can just submit it as a PDF to me, the 2 pages, and you can do that anytime over the next week to get that out of your way. All right. The idea is I want you to start identifying how the grid format is working, which there really isn't one on your website. So that'll be great for you because now you can kind of rethink it and develop a grid that's going to really carry navigation and content, imagery, and maybe actually get those poor little babies adopted, because clearly it's not going so well for them right now.
Yeah.
um, the second part is doing a mood board, right? And I shouldn't really have to describe this too much. You already have done them before. A lot of times it's great to make a mind map or to just write words down that are going to be associated with the visual outcome that you'd like to have. Remember, this is about feelings. How do you want people to feel? The mood board is going to allow you to do that. You do not have to use any images that come off their website. You may want to kind of determine your color palette with the mood board, to give yourself ways to connect with color in here. Try not to use any typography if you can. It just allows for you to be a little bit more interpretive with your images, right? You know how to do this part, so I don't have to give you too much guidance there. So that, again, you can submit at any point in time in the next week. If you get it done, send it over. And then the sitemap. So I know we're not going to be designing all of the pages, but I really would like for you to work with the sitemap so that you have a good understanding of how this site connects all together. So for this week, for this part of it, what I want you to do is to just write down all of the different sections to the website. And then next week, when we get together, we can work on this and talk about how they connect to each other. And basically, a sitemap is just a guide on connection. So, like, they have a section on their website where, let me just pop over here, they have the application, right? So this is all great, and the application process is all here. It's clearly written out what their expectations are. Here's, you can print this, by the way. At the top here, it gives you a print application mode, so if you don't want to fill it out online. And then it also gives you all of the questions and response areas, and you can submit it online, right, or print it. Not really well designed. There's missing information. There's a border on one side but no border on the other. So, like, obviously some stuff that you can do better with this. But why not? Why shouldn't there be a link back to the animals, right? Like, if you're applying for an adoption, what's the first thing you're going to do after you finish the application? You're going to go back and look at the one you want to adopt, right? Like, why not have that connection here? So this is where we can start to look at this and make sure that the links that we're putting on the individual pages are making sense. So when we get into the pet area and we're looking at cats for adoptions and dogs for adoptions, pets for adoptions, adoption fees, adoption application, like, that's all really good top line stuff that I can then go to. But, like, how can we better connect once we go to the cat adoption page? Like, how can we connect that better? Oh, wait a minute, here's a link for dogs only. So now we can look at the specific link from one page to another, and that's what we're going to do with our sitemap, is how do they all connect. And I'm trying to think if it would equate to something that you've done in the past. Probably not. When I was in fifth grade, we got Tandy computers. I know, I'm just totally dating myself, which were kind of the first computers to come out in the consumer market, meaning people could have them in their homes. And they had the green screens, and all you could do was program them. And I didn't quite understand it. I was like, why are we writing these words? Like, who cares? But what it taught me was how to do site mapping, which was called something different. It was the go stop method, which is basically charting out how you want the end result to be and how connections are made from one page to another. So that's really what we'll be working on with the sitemap. But if you have an outline already of every page, and we can kind of create a graphic to do that, it makes your life so much easier. And you may change your mind as you go forward and you realize these two things need to connect because they're similar, or these two things need to connect. I want to be able to go here after I leave here. So that's where you start looking at the overall structure of the site and how it really will come together. So, how users are using it, how they're browsing through it. It's a really good way to be able to connect with your audience and make sure that you're not having to go back too many times. So we'll be working on that. So what I'm just want to ask you to do this week is to literally just write down every section. So when we get to this next week, you can be working on it while we're talking about it in class. Okay?
Okay.
And then that's going to be it for over this week, because I don't want to get too far into the wireframe, because I want you to break it down first this week, and then next week we'll start looking at the wireframe and the grid for the site that you want to develop. Obviously, the research you do this week and you're looking at other websites, track those so that you can come back and use those as examples or pull things that you like from those to start building your wireframe. And I think I've only required for you to do 3 pages, so you're just going to have three pages in the end that you'll be designing. The cool thing about wireframing is, I mean, obviously this is like the grid structure for a website, is that it allows for you to kind of put things all there and start looking at it without any of the images or the text. I try and get you guys to do this a lot with print. A lot of you guys skip over this part. Just by doing a quick sketch here, just draw where lines are for text, and here's a box for the image. But with websites, so many times you're going to show this to the client before any content is put in to make sure that they're okay with the layout. Clients like to be part of this process a lot of times because they have a vision of how their website should be functional. Now, sometimes we can disprove their theory, because we know how a user is going to work through it. And even with a wireframe, you can test this on users without any content. Go ahead and go here, go here, click on this, do this. You give them a scenario to follow through and see if they can achieve it. It's like sending them into a maze and having them get to the end. So it's kind of a cool way to do it with a wireframe. But we'll work on that next week. And then the last part, obviously, is to take your wireframe and to create those final 3 pages into your final website. So that's what I got.
Okay.
How do you feel about all this?
I think it'll be okay.
I think you're going to do great. I think you're going to have a really cool piece when you're all done with this. And the part that I love is that I'm making you do all of the research and the pieces and process to get there. So even though you'll have only 3 pages done of the website, just showing a potential employer your thinking process, getting up to that point, I think will be huge. So I know you don't necessarily know how to code, and I know that you're necessarily learning how the basis of web design works. I think this is going to teach you a lot to get to that final design. So you can learn the rest, right? I mean, that's just process. And now that I gave you W3 schools, you can go teach yourself. And you do have lynda.com. You have the access to lynda.com still, right? Did you write that down?
Yes.
Okay, because you can always go in there. You have access to Dreamweaver, which is the Adobe program to develop websites, and play around with it, because you can do your creations like you do in W3 schools. You can code and do your graphics on the same visual page if you want to do that.
Okay.
All right?
Alright. Sounds good.
Yeah, we covered a lot today.
Sure did.
Sorry. You know me, I can't help it.
That's okay.
It is okay, but it can be a lot. I know I can be a little overwhelming. Sorry.
Nah.
All right, so if you have any questions, which I don't think you will, you're doing basic stuff that you've kind of done before. You're just outlining your 2 web pages with your underlying grid, which will be pretty basic. Just like I said, screen grab them, put them together in Photoshop or even InDesign, and then just, pop them into their own layer. Do your red lines over the top to show me your grid. Get your mood board done, get your research done, and then just write down all the different sections of your website so that we've got everything ready to go to start our sitemap next week.
Okay.
Perfect. Any other questions for me?
I don't think so, no.
All right. I'm going to let you go to it then.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you. You too. Enjoy. Hopefully the weather's going to get a little bit nicer this weekend. You can get outside and just run around in your backyard.
Yes, hopefully.
All right, Skylar. Have a
All
great
right, bye.
weekend.